Hi Nanki, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
All good. Just very long days, even during the lockdown, doing a lot of stuff in terms of market research and all of that. Plus, all these podcasts as well, and really lucky to have you as my guest tonight.
My pleasure. And I feel, don't you feel that during this lockdown, everyone is kind of working a bit more because you're home? So
Hmm.
sometimes the hours are longer. I don't know.
I think that's a valid point, but to add to that, there's also this kind of apprehension or even slight amounts of fear that with so much happening around in the world, and people are almost always compelled to actually start learning new skills or being engaged in something or the other. I know that doesn't sound really well in terms of you could say mental health or even being confident about whatever you are in this state of mind, but even I had this tendency, like when the lockdown started for the first 1 week or so, even at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m., I felt there's so much darkness around me. And like it sounds very filmy and cinematic and all that, but it just felt that way. But gradually, I got used to the whole lockdown schedule and then started waking up early. I started like when the lockdown started, I used to sleep at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something. I would just keep watching something on Netflix and all of that and wake up at 10 or 11, and it would be a very lazy day. But gradually, I have changed my schedule and gotten back to a daily thing. And with internship starting soon, I think that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think it's not only you whose routine kind of got disrupted.
Yeah.
I think it's everyone. Even I went through that phase. And I think there was a lot of stress and pressure on everyone because everyone was home. And even during the week, there were those phases where people were feeling extremely demotivated but had to work
Yeah.
and being able to work putting pressure.
Hmm.
And I came across this very interesting meme which said, we are all in the middle of a pandemic and not a productivity marathon.
Yeah.
So that was more like an eye opener,
Hmm.
that it's okay. If you're not as productive or if you're not working that much,
Hmm.
it's okay. Which we often, I think, are losing track of, being home.
Yeah. I was always torn between when I saw this meme. I had this change in mentality. Like it went really from
Yeah.
you could say north to south pole because I was always looking at myself and thinking that okay, I am doing A, B, C, and then some people are not really doing anything. They're cribbing about it. They might also take up this opportunity. And then the moment I saw that meme, I'm like, okay, like it's not okay to crib about my mental health when I'm low. Like I need to acknowledge the fact that others might also be going through a tough time, and this is not a race that when you come out of it. Obviously, if you are doing something in this lockdown, it adds to your resume, it adds to your confidence,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
adds to you all of this, but not at the cost of your mental health. I think that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree there. And I think it's just giving yourself those constant reminders
Yeah.
that you're doing the best you can
Hmm.
in the current circumstances. So,
Yeah. I think we have a few viewers online,
oh,
5 viewers to kick it off. So that's a decent number considering this is my first YouTube stream. And so we just kick it off with a formal introduction of our guest. Welcome everyone to episode 7 of Candid in Lockdown with Oonche Vichaar. Tonight we have Miss Nanaki J Chadha with us, who is a sport and performance psychologist. She has a vast experience in this field, having worked with athletes across various sports like golf, hockey, cricket, and football. In this session, Nanki would be taking us through her journey in sports psychology and also talking a lot about how important mental health is and also how important psychology is as a whole in a sports person's life and journey. Welcome, Nanki. I'm really glad to have you here.
thank you. It's my pleasure.
So, Nanki, would you like to share a bit more about your journey in present and what are you doing these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey into sports psychology actually started, I think now it's been 6 years.
Hmm.
So I used to be a golfer myself and used to play at the national level. And
Yeah.
I used to play all across India. And I was really good in training. I could perform extremely well when I used to train. But when it used to come to when it came to competitions, I used to crumble under pressure. I used to feel extremely anxious, could not just perform under pressure. So,
Yeah.
where sports psychology is concerned, or where the mental aspect of the game was concerned, I recognized its importance at a very young age.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, at that time, that resource was very scarce in our
Yeah.
country. I could not come across any qualified
Hmm.
sports psychologist.
Yeah.
And alongside, I was doing my undergrad in psychology. So that's when I decided, why don't I combine my passion for sports and
Hmm.
psychology
Yeah.
and enter the field of sports psychology and give back to the sporting industry and help athletes who might be struggling where the mental aspect of the game is concerned. So that's where my journey into
Hmm.
sports psychology began actually.
Sure. And when we talk about your childhood and youth, what kind of involvement did you have as a sports person? If you could talk a bit more about that.
Involvement as a sports
Uh,
person
would
in
you
the
play any
sense.
sports regularly? How occasionally? And like, what
Yeah.
was your favorite sport and all of that?
I actually started playing golf at the age of 13,
Okay.
and I played competitive golf for approximately 10 years, I
Hmm.
would say.
Yeah.
So I also represented India in a few international events.
Yeah.
So I was playing it competitively, and amateur golf I was playing under the Indian Golf Union. And I took a gap year to decide whether I really want to take it up professionally.
Yeah.
At some point, I was actually thinking of turning professional.
Hmm.
So I was heading towards sports being my career,
Yeah.
uh, playing golf full time.
Hmm.
So I was very involved. I used to train regularly, had a very disciplined routine as an athlete, uh, focusing on my diet, eating the right kind of food, sleeping on time. So yeah, so it was quite a regiment routine that I followed in my youth years.
Sure. And then when you grew up, how was your college journey like in terms of sports and involvement with sports?
It was quite good. So I was playing golf throughout my undergrad,
Okay.
which I did from Delhi University, Jesus and Mary College in Delhi.
Yeah.
I was playing golf throughout my undergrad years,
Hmm.
and then I took a gap year after my undergrad to really figure out what I want to do with my life and whether I want to take golf professionally. But
Yeah.
like I said, I could not handle the pressure and used to crumble under pressure. So I thought, why not then do something within sports, because I've played sports pretty much throughout my life. So I never thought of myself doing a corporate job or,
Hmm.
being in an office from 9 to 5.
Sure.
So yeah, so that.
I think in your journey, what is very significant, at least in my perspective, is that you found a space, you found a gap in the whole ecosystem, and then you decided to actually be the person who would change it. Like, you didn't wait for anyone else to change it, but you were the one who took initiative. So, why don't you take us to your journey of making that transition from someone who used to play golf to actually going in the field of sports psychology?
I think the field of actually studying sports psychology has been quite amazing, and I got into the field because I was passionate about sports, and I actually wanted to come back to India and actually help athletes,
Hmm.
because I went through a lot of anxiety, the challenges I faced in competitive sport.
Yeah.
I feel every athlete goes through that.
Hmm.
So for me, studying the subject, I think I wish I had studied it further. I might have taken golf professionally
Yeah.
and have uh, able to sort my anxiety out, but that didn't happen.
Hmm.
So currently, of course, my journey still continues. I am pursuing a PhD in the same,
Yeah.
doing research to understand more how I can provide support to athletes mainly.
Yeah. And what was your first client like, if I can ask you that? And what was your journey, basically interacting with your first client, and what was the whole story like?
My first client, uh, yeah, actually, my first client was quite fascinating and quite a challenging experience. So I was in the UK when I was approached by the parents of an 8-year-old swimmer, a
Okay.
female swimmer.
Hmm.
And I was quite taken aback. First client being so young, how will I deal with the client? Will I be able to communicate um, with the client clearly? Will the client be able to understand what sports psychology is and the strategies
Yeah.
that I share with her? However, it was a brilliant experience. It was an eye opener for me actually.
Hmm.
So this athlete actually was understanding the concepts really well, started performing really well in competitions. And what was more fascinating was others that she was able to not only apply these sports psychology principles in her sport,
Yeah.
but she actually took these principles and transferred them into her academic life. So I remember she came for a session with her father, and the
Hmm.
father said that she wants to say something to you.
Hmm.
And the 8-year-old girl actually said, "Thank you so much. I had an interview in my
Hmm.
school
Yeah.
to become a prefect or head girl. I don't know if it is in the UK at that age, but I think it was
Yeah.
prefect. And I was supposed to give a speech last minute, and I was feeling super anxious.
Hmm.
And the technique that you told me,
Hmm.
what to say to yourself, breathing techniques, I did that, and I was confident, and I actually delivered a very successful speech.
Hmm.
So I was actually taken aback because I was mainly focusing on her sport
Yeah.
and the challenges she faced in sport,
Hmm.
but actually having the frame of mind to apply those skills in another performance area for
Hmm.
an 8-year-old was
Yeah.
quite fascinating and an eye opener for me.
Hmm.
And that also made me realize that age is like earlier I used to feel that okay, there's a certain section that I would want to work with where athletes are concerned because it'll be simpler for them to grasp the understanding of sports psychology.
Yeah.
But I think the younger you start, the better,
Hmm.
because that's when the foundation can be set um, and can build a strong foundation.
Yeah.
And and like I said, my experience with her of understanding the concepts clearly.
Hmm.
So I would say it wasn't so. It actually cleared the doubt that age is just a number; it doesn't matter. So
Hmm.
the younger you start, better because you can actually uh, build a solid foundation
Sure.
for the.
Also, I think Nanki, it's very significant that that's also an impressionable age. Like whatever you teach that child, whatever environment that child is in, it adds up to the overall build-up of that personality as that person grows up. I would like to ask you one question, just a follow-up to this one. That this was in the UK, if I heard that correctly. Would you see the same kind of awareness or the same kind of volunteering by a parent or a child back here in India?
Uh, it's a very good question, and it's been a year that I shifted back to India. I shifted back last year. Since then, I would say I've had a mixed. I've had a mixed response. I've had parents who've been very forthcoming
Hmm.
and want to seek sports psychology support,
Yeah.
but on the other side, I've also had parents who have not been very active or proactive, or even athletes for that matter,
Yeah.
um, proactive in seeking sports psychology
Hmm.
support. So I
Yeah.
feel we are the awareness is increasing, but we have a long, long way to go.
Sure. So we just move on and look at a different age bracket when it comes to your clients. How has your experience been like, dealing with, you could say, grown up individuals like professional athletes and who have actually entered a age where they are no more impressionable as much as a child would have been? How has that experience been for you?
I think for me, every client has been a very learning experience because I personally feel that every athlete um, is different. They have their own needs and requirements. Like one size does not fit all.
Yeah.
So the approach that I take towards my clients is also that I cater to their specific needs,
Hmm.
rather than giving one strategy or intervention to all of them. So, where older athletes are concerned, of course, for them to understand the concepts of sports psychology and adherence to it
Hmm.
has been more.
Yeah.
But I would say I haven't seen much difference in terms of uh, not much athlete or an older athlete is concerned. I think
Yeah.
at the end it all comes to the individual themselves of how important they think sports psychology is for their sport,
Yeah.
how it can help them
Hmm.
improve their game,
Yeah.
and then basically it's up to them how much they actually dedicate their time and energy towards the
Hmm.
mental aspect of the game. So I would say for younger athlete, like I mentioned, the 8-year old,
Yeah.
she did understand the importance of it, and she gave it her 100%
Hmm.
and was vigilant in applying the skills. So I think the same thing, if a older athlete understands the importance of it and is dedicated
Hmm.
to practicing those skills and applying them in their sport, then I think the experience is not that different.
Sure. Also, Nanki, as a sport and performance psychologist that you are, we had this internal conversation that this is a field that hasn't picked up as much, but there's definitely a future where there will be more awareness. I wanted to know the parameters by which athletes are judged in terms of their psychological maturity or mental wellness, if you can say so. If I am an athlete who first comes for a treatment to you in Mumbai, and then for some reason I have to relocate to, let's say, USA, would the parameters still be same? Has there been the uniformity in the field of sports psychology across countries and continents, or everywhere there's a different approach that people take?
Uh, no, actually, the approach remains quite the same,
Yeah.
like the basic approach of how you conduct sessions.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, if an athlete from India moves to a country overseas,
Yeah.
then the session just changes to virtual sessions, now
Okay.
which we all are experiencing in the current scenario where everything has become virtual, digital. You
Yeah.
are having your Zoom calls.
Hmm.
So I think that's a change that has happened in sports psychology.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's now more because of the physical distancing
Hmm.
um, aspect to it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would say it does not change country to country. Of course,
Hmm.
the cultural aspects might be there,
Hmm.
but in terms of the protocol that a psychologist takes, where
Hmm.
your confidentiality is concerned,
Yeah.
all these things pretty much remain the same
Sure.
throughout the board.
And when you look at all of these clients, how important is an aspect like personality type? I know that there are a lot of tests that are done online where you can understand. I don't have much knowledge about it, but the last time I checked, I came across as EFNJ, if I'm correctly remembering it. My point is that how important is the personality type when it comes to treatment of athletes at a psychological level?
So good question. But so in psychology, there are two kind of aspects.
Yeah.
One is state aspect, and the other is state.
Hmm.
Uh, Sports being a highly competitive arena where most of the athletes who seek sports psychology support want instant results.
Yeah.
Now, by instant results, I do not mean overnight results,
Hmm.
but they are looking to perform better.
Hmm.
So it can be a few months down the line that they want to see improvement in the mental aspect of their game. And there I feel the personality of course has a role to play, but we focus more on the specific issues and concerns that they are coming up with. So for example, some of the issues or concerns that athletes might face would be anxiety,
Hmm.
uh, would be lack of confidence or motivation,
Hmm.
which are more uh, which will impact the performance more.
Hmm.
And that's when, if suppose if we have more time with the athlete, then we would go more into the personality aspect, but more than personality, I would say we'll go more deeper in their thought process of how they think and try changing that, because the way we think is the way we perform and the way we actually feel. So if an athlete is thinking in a negative manner, they're going to feel more anxious about their performance, and then they're not going to perform, and sometimes it might hamper their performance compared to when they are thinking in a more logical and a positive manner. So I think psychology, sports psychology, the main core aspect is the thought process. It's the way your thoughts drive the way you behave and the way you emote,
Hmm.
actually.
I think those are really interesting points that you brought up there. And the reason I took up this topic as a follow up question is because now let's look at team psychology. When you deal with clients that are teams, it's basically a coming together of multiple personalities, multiple types of individual level issues when it comes to psychology. How have you dealt with such clients, like when it comes to teams?
So yeah, so I have had some experience of working with teams, but
Yeah,
mainly again in UK. I've had experiences where the team, like where the coach got me in
yeah,
and was very forthcoming
hmm,
and believed in sports psychology.
yeah,
So with that mindset
hmm,
and athletes buying into it, it
hmm,
was much easier to work with them,
hmm,
doing a lot of team building exercises, because of course the working with the team is not easy because it's got individuals from different backgrounds, cultures.
hmm,
So you need to keep that in mind.
yeah,
uh, but a team where the coach is more forthcoming, the players do support the idea of sports psychology and think they need that, and that's um, an aspect that
hmm,
can really uplift their game,
hmm,
has been much easier compared to a team where they've just got me for one session and that's about it. So,
hmm,
like I mentioned earlier, it's not magic. It's not going to give you results overnight or after one session.
yeah,
I often use this analogy that the mental aspect of the game is very similar to our physical body.
hmm,
So, like an athlete will go to the gym, train every day,
hmm,
and after a few months, they'll see their body transforming, muscle building.
yeah,
Same is with psychology. You
hmm,
have to work on it regularly.
hmm,
Um, and you need to kind of keep at it and give it as much importance and training time as an athlete would give to the physical aspect or even the technical aspect of their game, which
sure,
I feel is something lacking.
yeah,
Like we will train every day, we will train physically every day, we will go
yeah,
see our coaches, but how often do we actually sit and focus on the mental aspect of the game?
hmm,
And same, if we stop training our physical body, if we stop working out, we'll see us losing muscle.
yeah,
So it's the same with mind. We have to regularly train it. As
hmm,
soon as we stop training the mind, of course, the thoughts keep coming. Then
hmm,
basically we go back on all the work that has been done. So it has to be given the same importance, and the same amount of work needs to be done on it as the technical or the physical aspect of the game.
absolutely. That brings me to our next question, Nanki. It's about, you could say, when you're approaching a team who can be your client, like they are not yet a client, but there's a chance. What kind of conversation do you have with them to make them realize the importance of sports psychology as a whole?
So very good question, Adarsh. And frankly speaking, as a sports psychologist, I can only create awareness.
Yeah.
But again, um, an awareness through my articles or through just having a conversation. But
Hmm.
uh, I think it really needs to come from the team and
Yeah.
from the coach themselves,
Hmm.
who will then approach a sports psychologist.
Sure.
Very rarely would you see a sports psychologist going team to team or
Hmm.
door to door and marketing themselves,
Yeah.
because it actually doesn't work like that. You, like the team and the athletes, have to believe in that to
Yeah.
really uh, then hire a sports psychologist, which I am seeing the change in India,
Hmm.
like during this lockdown, Sports Authority of India
Yeah.
were doing webinars for athletes,
Hmm.
and they did have a sports psychology webinar for athletes, coaches, and even parents, I think.
Yeah.
So, that way, so they did understand, and they uh, basically they did identify the importance of sports psychology during this lockdown,
Yeah.
and then had a webinar, which a lot of other private organizations are also doing now.
Yeah. Nanki, I also saw a Facebook post on your timeline where you had participated in one of the webinars that maybe you're talking about right now. What were your key takeaways from that webinar and talking to the various participants that were there?
The webinar, I think one of the challenges with these webinars are you can't have it because there's so many webinar.
Yeah,
Somewhere you lose the interaction. You
yeah,
can't really interact with them or try understanding each and every person's perspective. So it's more like um, giving them knowledge,
yeah.
but so some athletes might benefit from that, some might not.
Hmm.
Because again, every individual, every athlete have their own individual challenges.
Sure.
But it has been a new experience for me also. I will be very honest in this lockdown period
Hmm.
to actually conduct webinars.
Hmm.
And so I feel it's a good way of creating awareness,
Yeah.
especially during this period. Rather than not doing anything, something is better than nothing.
Hmm.
Um, and my takeaway would be I try keeping my webinars as interactive as possible,
Yeah.
try addressing all their questions. But like I said, if there are a large number of athletes, then that's a challenge. But I think it is a good medium to create awareness to support athletes.
Yeah. Nanki will pick up a question from the live feed now. Conrad Barreto, one of the people who's viewing the live, he asks, what are the main parameters to be worked upon to improve performance and increase motivation?
Okay. So there are a lot of parameters in sports psychology,
Yeah.
but like the viewer has asked specifically about motivation,
Yeah.
um, I can talk more about that.
Hmm.
I would say specifically, motivation is something that motivation is actually waking up and basically going and investing your time and energy into your sport training,
Hmm.
working out.
Yeah.
I feel during this lockdown period, that is one aspect that a lot of athletes are uh, struggling with.
Hmm.
They are there is lack of motivation because of being indoors.
Yeah.
And I feel one thing about how one can increase motivation is by having a structured plan.
Yeah.
Also, often athletes lose motivation is when they don't have a structured plan and they lose their sense of direction. So, for example, having a timetable, knowing when athletes have quite a structured routine in which they exactly know when they are going to work out, when they are going to work on their technical aspect.
Yeah.
So it's very important to even have the mental aspect and the motivation. Start working on aspects on your goal setting,
Hmm.
because I think goals need to be altered. Like the small, like so in goals there are long term goals and short term goals.
Hmm.
So your short term goals need to be altered and evaluated so that the athlete's motivated every day.
Hmm.
Now, by evaluation, I mean, for example, if an athlete has a goal that
Yeah.
after 2 months, or let's take it, yeah, after 2 months, I want to improve my physical aspect
Hmm.
to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you are going training every single day, but how are you actually monitoring
Hmm.
that improvement?
Yeah.
So that often when we do not monitor that improvement,
Hmm.
the athletes lose motivation
Yeah.
because they don't know they're working day and night, but
Hmm.
they don't know whether they're improving or not.
Hmm.
So we all want results. Even we as individuals, if we are doing a task and we do not see improvement, we
Hmm.
lose motivation. So it's
Sure.
very, very important that whether you're training your physical aspect or technical aspect
Hmm.
or the psychological aspect of the game, we keep monitoring it and evaluating it
Hmm.
so that we get a sense of purpose and we get more motivated that yes, what I'm doing is correct, and
Hmm.
that keeps you motivated.
Sure. Conrad has a
Now,
follow-up question to that, if I can just add one more point. He is talking about the business professionals as well. When you talk about sports, it also has sports management professionals. Now, he's the founder of a community in Goa that's
okay.
essentially into journalism and a lot more things. So, his question is also on those lines, that how can sports management professionals really work on this aspect?
So same. So like I said, as sports management professionals,
Yeah.
I'm sure setting goals again. So for, setting individual or company goals which are realistic.
Yeah.
So having that goal and working towards that goal.
Hmm.
So again, that might it might be like one. I'm not an expert in sports management to give a specific
Yeah.
example, but for example, just having a goal at the end of the month that this is one aspect we want to improve, or this is
Hmm.
our goal, or our
Hmm.
aim, and then setting smaller goals of how to reach that main goal,
Yeah.
and in the process reevaluating. So every day or every week, at the end of every week, analyzing that the strategies that we've listed down, are they efficient, are they helping us reach our goal, rather than not reviewing anything and at the end of the month saying that this entire month's gone waste. We
Hmm.
have not reached our goal. But having a systematic plan structure
Yeah.
and evaluation, I mean, how you can evaluate it is on an objective manner.
Hmm.
It can be stats, if
Yeah.
you can measure your progress, or
Hmm.
it can be on a subjective scale.
Hmm.
So, subjective scale can be on a 1 to 10 scale,
Yeah.
saying, okay, as a team, how much have we improved or how much are we doing towards our goal? So, 1 would be not at all, 10 would be extremely
Sure.
well. So these are the two measures, objective and subjective,
Hmm.
in which you can measure your goals, which will, of course, and the more you feel more satisfied and um, getting the results that you want
Yeah.
from that strategy, you'll
Hmm.
feel more motivated. Because one main reason of lacking motivation is when we are unable to reach our goals.
Hmm.
And often that's the case when we don't have a structured plan.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
structure is very important, and realistic deadlines is also very important,
Hmm.
because often if we set ourselves very non-realistic deadlines and we
Yeah.
are unable to achieve them,
Hmm.
that will also reduce our motivation levels. So firstly, setting very realistic goals and
Hmm.
then constantly evaluating and monitoring them will help in remaining motivated.
Sure.
I hope I've answered your question there.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that when you're setting goals, it should always be a combination of a long-term goal that you want to achieve. That's maybe your vision, which then you can backtrack and then break it down into smaller milestones. Maybe that can keep you motivated as well.
Absolutely. So by the long term goal, it'll be, of course, like you said, the vision,
Yeah,
and your small term goal will be the stepping stones
yeah,
towards your long term goal.
sure. Also, there's another question from one of the viewers, Manas Singh. He is also a sports presenter. So his question is that the number of people dealing with depression in sports is huge. So how do you deal with such a situation? Also, I'll add a follow-up question to that. Are there enough communities of sports psychologists in the world that regularly interact, share experiences, and a lot of knowledge sharing happens to deal with such a situation?
Yeah. So, of course, during this whole period, the mental health issues have increased within sports.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm not a clinical psychologist, so I'm not going to specifically talk about depression.
yeah,
Um, because depression is a clinical
hmm.
illness, and I don't deal with athletes who have uh, like clinical issues.
Sure,
However, where your question is, are there enough bodies to deal with this?
hmm.
Of course, like all across, like abroad, you have these governing bodies. Like the UK has the British Psychological Society,
Yeah,
and America has ASP,
hmm.
which is so all these bodies are there and have
Hmm.
registered and have qualified professionals to deal with these issues. So
Yeah,
athletes, organizations can actually reach out to these organizations to gain help.
yeah,
I would say, unfortunately, India does not have a sports psychology governing organization that's functional
hmm.
right now. So I think that is something lacking in our ecosystem and very much needed, because we have seen an increase in mental health issues during the lockdown
Yeah,
among athletes.
hmm.
However, we do have sports psychology, qualified sports psychology professionals in the country.
Hmm.
Um, with regards to clinical issues, then the athletes need to reach out to what do you say, a psychiatrist in that
Sure.
case.
Sure. Also, we move on to the next question, and that's something along the lines of how the situation is right now. And my question is, What are some of the psychological challenges that sports persons have faced that you have come across while dealing with them?
So during the current phase,
Yeah,
the situation that none of us predicted or saw coming,
yeah,
and for athletes who work every day and have a very disciplined routine, for
mm,
them all of a sudden being enclosed at home has been a challenge, and they have
yeah,
been experiencing a wave of emotions. So I've
mm,
had athletes who've been dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety. So
yeah,
that's very, very common. But also there are phases where athletes are feeling angry, disappointed.
mm,
Also,
yeah,
a lot of athletes who were going to compete in Olympics, now
mm,
it's been shifted next year. But
yeah,
there is that sense of uncertainty.
mm,
Will it be safe?
yeah,
Even though sports are now coming back behind closed doors, but is it safe for
yeah,
even us to step and train
mm,
for that?
mm,
There is a lot of stress, anxiety, uncertainty
yeah,
that is going on
mm,
currently. And
mm,
also, athletes are afraid to lose their form
mm,
by not being able to train physically.
mm,
They are a bit scared of, okay, when we kind of come out and we start competing,
mm,
will we be able to compete
yeah,
to our best?
mm.
So, so I feel these are the few common issues and challenges that athletes are dealing with currently.
Sure, I think that's also a way of saying, or rather realizing that the range of issues that athletes are going through is pretty common to say so. Like in the sense, everybody is concerned about their health right now. How will they come out of this pandemic and all that? But let's also talk about what was the case before COVID happened. Like in the past 1 or 2 years, when you have interacted with clients, what were some of the challenges? Maybe someone would have lost, let's say, a hockey game, and then he was very disappointed that he won't be able to play again. And so, these kind of challenges, what do you think are they like?
So, apart from the current scenario, the common challenges that athletes face, of course, there is stress and anxiety,
Yeah,
because they all are playing competitive sport, they want to perform well.
yeah,
And as soon as where the thoughts come, I want to perform well, I have to perform well,
hmm,
the stress levels are very high.
yeah,
And we also need to see that sports is highly competitive, and
hmm,
and the sport in general promotes the notion that an athlete must win
yeah,
and has to win,
hmm,
and that failure is not acceptable,
hmm,
thus causing a lot of stress and anxiety.
yeah,
Apart from that, there is lack of motivation. So of
hmm,
course, when athletes are unable to reach their goals,
hmm,
they feel demotivated because that's what they worked really hard towards,
sure,
which can also result to lack of confidence,
hmm,
uh, lack of focus and concentration during a competition, or not being able to deal with their emotions, or controlling their emotions during or even before, during, and after a competition. So these are, I think, the broad
hmm,
umbrella terms where
yeah,
uh, the challenges that athletes face in their um, sport.
sure. Nanki, there's another pattern that I have observed as a, you could say, a passive observer, that when a sports person's career actually gets over, then there's a lack of, you could say, motivation in terms of milestones. Many people are not aware that what will they do. We have seen stories even in Bollywood, to just compare it, that many actors who have played a significant role in some movie might then have zero clue about what to do after their career ends. So there's a similar scenario in sports as well, with a lot of people who have won medals for us are now in a position where they are doing menial jobs for earning a living. And I'm sure that is also taking a toll on their mental health. According to you, how important is it for a, you could say, sports person to set up an alternate career as well?
So, like you mentioned, that a lot of athletes might be struggling after their sport, how
Yeah.
to cope after their sport. So a lot of athletes who retire from sport, I think the first challenge, the challenge that they face is losing their sporting identity.
Hmm.
So athletes are always seen for the sport that they play, for what they achieve in their sport.
Yeah.
And as soon as they stop playing,
Hmm.
that identity is somewhere lost,
Hmm.
which they struggle with.
Yeah.
They don't, in sports, we don't see the person as a person apart from the sports person.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's one challenge, which then, gives them that, and also, of course, the fan following that they have.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's a sense of isolation also.
Hmm.
When you're in sports, you have it, if it's a team sport, you have your coach, you have your teammates around you.
Yeah.
You know, in individual sports, you do have a support system around you. But
Sure.
as soon as you sport somewhere, there is that sense of isolation as well.
Yeah.
So I feel first and foremost, after retiring from a sport or um, planning their career after sports,
Yeah.
uh, it can be depending on what the athlete wants, what they are passionate about. So I won't say they have to specifically stick to a career in sports,
Yeah.
but often that is something that's more feasible, because they have played the sport, they're more passionate about the sport, they can give back to the sporting ecosystem.
Hmm.
So whether that's by getting involved in the sports management aspect, coaching aspect,
Yeah.
and I think and that also can help them deal with their mental health issues because they're still connected to their sport
Hmm.
in some manner or the other. They
Yeah.
might not be physically playing it, but they're still in connect with their sport,
Hmm.
which often athletes struggle to completely like let go of their sport. So
Yeah.
by getting involved in a sport specific job
Hmm.
can still help them remain in contact with that. And
Sure.
also, I feel we need to be very, very particular about building that support network around them
Yeah.
after retirement in sports
Hmm.
to reduce the mental health concerns. So that can be your friends, support from friends, family, or even other people in the sporting fraternity.
Sure. Nanki, I'll now draw a link from this recent discussion that we had to the presence of media around a sports person's life and whatever he does regularly. In a recent podcast that I was on, I talked about how the media or the media hype has impacted a lot of youngsters. That given one or two good performances, they are hyped up, and when they fail to perform even in just one game, there's a massive backlash that happens on social media. So, as a
Yeah.
sport and performance psychologist, how do you deal with such cases if they come to you?
So, Adarsh, like I said, the sport is such a highly competitive arena
Yeah,
which promotes the notion that the athlete has to win,
yeah,
and losing is unacceptable.
hmm,
And like you said, when an athlete wins two matches but loses one,
hmm,
the focus is often on the lost match,
yeah,
and not the two matches that the athlete did well in.
hmm,
Which I would say the athlete or even the society, the
yeah,
media, the society, the environment,
hmm,
um, drills this irrational belief system in athletes. Now,
yeah,
by saying irrational, these are very illogical, unhelpful thoughts.
yeah,
They are very rigid thoughts,
hmm,
which results also in a lot of mental health issues among athletes.
hmm,
So, for me, the first and foremost thing with athletes with that kind of mindset is to normalize the competitive nature of sport as just being a sport. Yeah, it
hmm,
is competitive, but if you lose, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your career,
sure,
which of course is not easy with athletes.
hmm,
That's, of course, it takes a few sessions. By changing their thought process from irrational to more rational thoughts. For instance, I'll give you an example of rational thought would be that I want to win,
hmm,
that I wish to win this competition, but if I don't, it's okay. It's
yeah,
not the end of my career. Because often what athletes do is it's like if I don't win, shit, I'm not good, I'm horrible, it's the end of my career. But
yeah,
if we change language to say, okay, I want to win, I wish to win,
hmm,
but if I don't, it's okay, I will get a second chance,
hmm,
automatically their goal remains the same.
yeah,
But the pressure that they put on themselves reduces a bit.
hmm,
And that's coming to that, that's something that athletes need to practice. And that's where the mental aspect of the game comes
hmm,
and the training comes. So, in constantly identifying your irrational thoughts
hmm,
and challenging them
yeah,
help athletes to reduce that pressure and deal with also the what media prints.
yeah.
Because if you see, media often prints a very irrational,
Hmm.
in a very irrational language.
Sure.
They will never say, okay, the athlete lost, but it's okay.
Hmm.
They'll
Yeah.
al- they always criticize the athlete, or it'll be in a negative manner.
Yeah. Hmm.
But if the athlete starts changing their inner dialogue and start believing in themselves that if I do not win a match, it's okay, it's nothing, I'm not a bad person or I'm not a failure, then that helps them deal with that scenario or the media in a more effective manner.
Yeah, I think another aspect that would lead to a very peaceful life for athletes is presence of more professionals in that industry when it comes to sports psychology. So I'm sure there will be a lot of aspiring professionals who would want to get in that field. What are your thoughts on that, and what kind of messages would you like to put out to them?
So I would say yes, that is a need in Indian ecosystem. We do need more qualified sports psychologists who want to make a difference to this field.
Yeah,
uh, in Unfortunately in India, um, I don't think there is a course, a specialized course.
yeah,
So I feel somewhere that's lacking, and we I hope in the future that is something introduced so that more and more individuals can join the field.
yeah.
But I feel athletes are passionate about sports, passionate about psychology, and
Hmm.
they understand that, yeah, it is an important field, then it's a brilliant field to really get into and make a difference. And already, I would say I'm seeing the shift.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, that Sports Authority of India, other private organizations have started bringing in sports psychologists,
Yeah.
which was not the case earlier.
Hmm.
So I think it's the beginning. We are heading in the right direction,
Yeah.
and I think in a few years, even sports psychology in India should grow in a major way.
Yeah. So before we drop curtains on this meeting, the call that we are having, any final thoughts on the whole concept of sports psychology, and especially in an Indian context?
I would just say to all the athletes, coaches, parents, or anyone watching this session that it's okay not to be okay. You know, sometimes you just need to talk to somebody, and that helps a lot with anxiety, stress. And by just seeking help from a professional does not mean that there's something wrong with you mentally.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start breaking the stigma attached around psychology, around sports psychology,
Yeah.
and actually see it as an element in
Hmm.
addition to the physical aspect and the technical aspect that can actually help athletes reach their optimal performance.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think athletes really need to, and especially now after the lockdown and in this period, I think athletes, coaches, parents should be forthcoming,
Hmm.
should take and seek help from professionals to best help them manage their emotions.
Sure.
So I would say people should not shy away from seeking help.
Sure. I think those are very valid points. And just closing it off, I would like to thank you, Nanki, for taking out time to come on this webinar and talking about such an important topic in the sports industry now. And I really wish you the best, even in your research that you're doing. And I hope the PhD goes well and you do come out with flying
Thank you.
colors, like always. And looking forward to more such webinars and having such conversations with you.
So thanks, Adarsh, for having me on this platform. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks to all the viewers who logged in. I hope the session was useful and uh, got some useful points which might help you if you're an athlete or a coach or parent or just in general passionate about sports. Uh, Looking forward to doing more sessions like these. Thank you.